Good evening. We're in Studio 6B, and it's my honor and pleasure to be speaking with Mr. John J. Jeckovich tonight. How are you feeling?
Very good, thank you.
You're looking well. You're looking well. It's May 19th, Monday, 2025. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. And Mr. Jeckovich is doing quite well. Mr. Jeckovich was from Company H, the 2nd Battalion of the new 291st Regiment of the Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. Yeah, we're talking about, before I start reading, what's your dog tag number?
42965.
Okay, great. Mr. Jeckovich was one of the last bloodiest battles, the Battle of the Bulge, and that took place in the Ardennes Forest. It was Hitler's last-ditch effort to attempt to kill many Americans and destroy more property. It didn't work out that well. There was a problem, is that the weather conditions were so bad that these young soldiers were stuck in Bastogne and were surrounded by many hundreds of thousands of Nazis, in which the Nazis had 6,000 tanks. And at that time they couldn't get air support. The weather conditions were horrible. Couldn't get air support in for nothing. Without air support and American paratroopers coming in by the thousands, they have a big problem. So they held out Bastogne, that was their orders, but it was a casualty rate was like 95%. It was a major loss of beautiful teenage boys, American soldiers during the Battle of the Bulge. And the biggest problem was the weather. Do you remember they couldn't get any air support?
Oh, yeah.
You had one run-in with Patton. How did that go when you were in the barn?
Patton?
Yeah, you were in the barn. What did he say to you?
He told me to get up and get your ass go to the checkpoint.
What was the background on it? You were trying to get some sleep?
Yeah, and when he saw Jeep parked to Jeep, what's his name, didn't park that Jeep past.
So the guy you're with...
He didn't camouflage it.
He didn't camouflage it?
Yeah.
So Patton seen the American Jeep in front of a barn, and then what happened?
He went inside, he saw us sleeping there, guys, get your ass up, get out. It was rolling rain out there.
Yeah. The Battle of the Bulge was one of the last major battles on the European theater, and they pushed the Germans back to Germany, and Hitler at that point realized he's done and committed suicide. But we have a little side notes from Mr. Jeckovich pertaining to the weather conditions in the Battle of the Bulge. And that steps up to, we'll title this as Patton's Prayer, George Patton's Prayer. George Patton was in a foul mood. Was he always in a foul mood?
Yeah.
Yeah. His Third Army was stalled in Lorraine, worn out after a fall of depressing attrition. Every day it seemed the weather got worse. There was about 4 inches of liquid mud over everything. You remember all that?
Yeah.
Slop?
Yeah.
He wrote his wife Beatrice, and it rains all the time, not hard but steadily. It was high time he decided to muster some divine intervention. Okay. The legendary and devoutly Christian George S. Patton before the Battle of Bulge. Around 11 a.m. on December 8, 1944, Patton picked up the telephone in his office at Caser Molafar, an old French army barracks in the city of Nancy that used to be used as a Third Army headquarters. You remember Nancy?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were there many a time.
Yeah, Nancy, yeah.
Patton called 52-year-old chief chaplain of the Third Army, James H. O'Neill.
Yeah.
So Patton called him. He's looking for some divine intervention. he said to the chaplain, the Army chaplain, "Do you have a good weather? Do you have a prayer for good weather?" asked Patton. "We must do something about those rains if we are going to win the war."
Yeah.
Couldn't get any troops in, couldn't get any paratroopers in, he couldn't get any air support. O'Neill told Patton he would look for a suitable prayer. He couldn't find one, so he created his own, jotting it down on a card. Do you ever remember seeing a prayer during the Battle of Bulge?
Yeah.
Okay. "Almighty and most merciful Father, we humbly beseech thee of thy great goodness to restrain those immoderate rains which we had to contend. Grant us fair weather for battle." So he was praying for fair weather for battle.
Yeah.
Because he knew as it has right now, we're in bad shape with no air support. "Graciously hearken to us soldiers who call upon thee that the army with thy power we may advance from victory to victory and crush the oppression and the wickedness of our enemies and establish thy justice among men and nations. Amen." Here's the best part. Patton's prayer card distributed to some 250,000 men in the Third Army. He had that many printed.
Oh, yeah.
He had that many
He had
printed.
printed up.
Yeah. O'Neill pulled on his overcoat, walked across the barracks, and then stood before Patton. That's the Army chaplain. Here we go. It always gets better. O'Neill held out the card. Patton took the card and examined it. Patton was pleased. "Have 250,000 copies printed," he said, "and see that every man in the Third Army gets one."
Oh, boy.
O'Neill was surprised by the number. That's 250,000 postcards. This was certainly doing something about the weather in a big way. "Very well, sir," replied O'Neill. "Chaplain, sit down for a moment. I want to talk to you about this business of prayer." So Patton's asking the chaplain to sit down for a minute. He says, "Chaplain, sit down for a minute. I want to talk to you about this business of prayer." O'Neill did what he was ordered and had grown to admire Patton. The general cared that his men got hot meals whenever possible, and they always had dry socks. He had once seen Patton looking for a wounded man, injecting him with. He once seen Patton looking after a wounded man, injecting him with morphine, remaining with him until the ambulance arrived. "Chaplain, how much praying is being done on the Third Army?" asked Patton. "Does the general mean by the chaplains or by the men?" "By everybody," Patton asked. "I'm afraid to admit it, but I don't believe there's much praying going on. When there is fighting, everyone prays, but now with this constant rain, when things are quiet, dangerously quiet, men just sit and wait for things to happen." Sound about right, huh?
Yeah.
A lot of battles, a lot of destruction, then you're quiet for a long time.
Yeah.
"Up to now, in the Third Army, God has been very good to us," said Patton. "We have never retreated, and we have suffered no defeats." Unbelievable. This is because a lot of people back home are praying for us. Like your mother prayed the rosary every night.
Yeah.
Like Renee prayed the rosary every night. There it is. So the people back home are doing the praying. We are lucky in Africa, in Sicily, and Italy, simply because people prayed. But we have to pray ourselves too, Patton said. Patton concluded the meeting by telling O'Neill that the soldiers should pray wherever they found themselves. If they didn't, they'd sooner or later go to pieces and crack up. Sounds like Patton. O'Neill returned to his quarters and issued a directive in Patton's name, which would be distributed to the Third Army's 486 chaplains, representing 32 denominations and senior officers in more than 20 divisions. Pray when driving, pray when fighting, pray alone, pray with others, pray by night, pray by day, pray for a cessation of immoderate rains, for good weather for battle, pray for victory, pray for our army, and pray for peace. On 14 December, the last of Patton's 250,000 prayer cards were distributed to his men. The timing of the delivery could not have been better. Just 2 days later, struck on the Western Front, Hitler launched his last desperate gamble to outcome the war, the surprise strike by over 200,000 troops that would become known as the Battle of Bulge. A depiction of Patton praying during the Battle of Bulge. Alone among Allied Army commanders, Patton emerged from the crisis with his reputation enhanced. He brilliantly pivoted his Third Army, sending his favorite division, the 4th Armored, to relieve the besieged 101st Airborne at Bastogne. So most of the 101st were gone.
Yeah.
Most of those guys were killed, right?
Yeah.
Casualties unbelievably high. But it was not until 23rd December, more than a week into the deadliest battle of the U.S. of World War II, that turned the tide decisively in favor of the Allies. That morning, Patton's prayer was dramatically answered. The general believed when the weather finally changed. The dawn skies were glory to behold. Dense cloud cover had gone. In the words of one GI, it was the war's most beautiful sunrise.
Yeah.
Patton was in his headquarters in Luxembourg City. He looked out the windows and delighted to see the blue above and not gray. And now here's exactly what Patton said. It went in all the newspapers when he seen those blue skies. Patton said, "What a glorious day for killing Germans." Patton would note this in his diary. When he see those blue skies, he said, "What a glorious day for killing Germans." Air controllers at Allied air bases announced visibility unlimited. That means go.
Yeah.
Visibility unlimited. A massive armada finally take to the air. Here was the Allies' chance to halt Hitler's forces and destroy their supply lines. The Germans never recovered from this devastation. And by the end of January 1945, the battle would end in what Winston Churchill described as an ever-famous American victory.
Yeah.
So it was Americans. It was Americans that did it all.
Yeah.
When the skies finally cleared, the Allies dropped in vital supplies to the defenders of Bastogne.
I remember that, yeah.
See, here's an interesting story about Mr. Jeckovich. When he went into the service, he was drafted. He was a teenager, like mostly everyone on the front line.
33, yeah.
The code was 33. And they affectionately nicknamed him the Diaper Division. Why was that?
Because they're all 18 years old.
All teenagers.
Yeah.
However, their last shot at the war was they're told to keep Bastogne at all cost. 97% casualties, but the Nazis didn't come in. And now instead of Mr. Jeckovich and his division being called the Diaper Division, they have a new name. That new name is the Bloody Bastards of Bastogne. The Bloody Bastards of Bastogne. Patton did not forget to, here we go. Patton did not forget to thank his chief chaplain for his prayer. Patton said to the chaplain, "God damn." Patton explained, "One day that O'Neill sure did some potent praying. Get him up here. I want to pin a medal on him." So he's going to give the chaplain a medal. He's telling the chaplain, "God damn," and he just made up 250,000 prayers.
Yeah.
Father O'Neill was brought to see a Patton immediately. Chaplain Patton says, "Chaplain, you're the most popular man in this headquarters," said Patton. "You sure stand in good with the Lord and soldiers." Patton then pinned the Bronze Star on O'Neill's chest, making him the only man to be awarded a medal in World War II for writing a prayer. Imagine that. Patton said, "Get him up here right now," and that chaplain came. O'Neill recalled as General Patton rushed his divisions to relieve the beleaguered Bastogne fighters like Mr. Jeckovich, the prayer was answered. However, it was bad news for the Germans, but was much to the delight of the American forecasters, who equally surprised at the turnabout. The rains and fog ceased. General Patton prayed for fair weather for battle, and he got it.
Yeah.
This is the actual postcard that Patton sent out to you guys. 250,000 of you. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah. Let me see.
That's the actual postcard you received.
You remember that prayer?
Yeah.
Here's a bigger one. It's got bigger writing on this
Bigger
one.
writing.
Bigger writing.
Ben, you can hold it up when you're done looking at it to the camera, Mr. Jeckovich.
A.S. Patton, U.S. Army, Lieutenant General. Yeah, Patton was a good guy.
Jeff, please put it.
Okay.
I need to show it to me.
Huh?
I need that handed to me.
Okay.
250,000 postcards printed. The postcard said, "Prayer. Almighty and most merciful Father, we humbly beseech thee of thy goodness to restrain these immoderate rain which we had to contend. Grant us fair weather for battle. Graciously hearken to us as the soldiers who call upon thee, that the armored with thy power, we may advance from victory to victory and crush the oppression and their wickedness of our enemies and establish justice among the nations." Amen. And this is from General Patton, the commander of the 3rd U.S. Army. And that did it.
Yeah.
And when Mr. Jeckovich was in that battle of the Bulge, it was the bloodiest battle ever. Mr. Jeckovich was shot in the shoulder, beat up, stabbed,
Lost a hip.
lost a hip, bombed, trench foot, frostbite.
Yeah.
He got hit by a dirty bomb, which was the Nazis put in all kinds of nasty pieces of metal, tools, razor blades, you name it, anything nasty to explode. They put it in and blow up above these kids' heads, these soldiers' heads. He still has that metal, some of it in his body right now.
Yeah.
That same dirty bomb is very unique, that his buddy, Donald Lape, got hit by that bomb and blew his head off, and the only thing left was his glasses hanging from one ear. And that's the same shrapnel that Mr. Jeckovich with. A lot of mud, a lot of snow, and a lot of blood from one end of the Bastogne to the other. It wasn't nice. And then they sent Mr. Jeckovich over to Paris, to a hospital there to recover. And these were all teenage boys, and this is probably one of the reasons we call them the greatest generation of all times. And most of these guys didn't complain about going in. They wanted to go in because there was great patriotism back then. I don't really see it much today. There was great friendship back then. I don't see it much today. But back then there was. Otherwise we speak in German. Ironically, when Mr. Jeckovich kicked the Nazis out of France, the French just couldn't do it. They actually outnumbered the Nazis in that battle. They had better equipment, but the Nazis occupied France for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, 3 years, yeah.
And if Mr. Jeckovich and all his squads and divisions didn't come in, we might also be speaking German today. And a very, very sad picture is when Hitler is giving a speech, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower to all his troops.
Yeah.
They took over Paris. And then came Mr. Jeckovich and his squad and his division, and they kicked their ass right out. There's one ironic story about the Eiffel Tower. When the Nazis occupied Paris for several years, Hitler wanted to go to the top. And the French workers that took care of the Eiffel Tower and the elevators told Hitler that the elevators were broke.
Yeah.
So they had to get him to the top by somehow he walked. And then if you fast forward 80 years, on the clear blue sky, it's on Mr. Jeckovich's video. Go to YouTube and put in John Jeckovich, and you'll find one of these videos stuck in there. A man from Paris, out of the clear blue, sent him a beautiful video. It was about 15 to 20 minutes long, and he was from Paris. He was standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, thanking Mr. Jeckovich for freeing his country, thanking him and all American GIs for thanking his country.
He was a Frenchman, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's so refreshing to see someone really appreciates. And that must be 3 or 4 generations since World War II, and this young fella just came up there and thanked him about recovering Paris and kicking out the Nazis, and so the French have great admiration for the young World War II vets. It's interesting. It was very interesting how they admire these guys. If not, who knows how it would have turned out? Who knows how it's turned out? Nazis were a very cruel and angry bunch of men, especially the SS. There's one good side note, and we really believe there's more good people than bad. And the good side note went like this. Mr. Jeckovich was walking in the woods, and a young teenage Nazi soldier had a drop on him.
Yeah.
He could blow your head off in a second.
Oh, yeah.
Your back was to him and he had a drop on him.
Yeah.
You heard a noise, you looked around, and what did he do?
He turned around, smiled at me, and left.
Yeah. He smiled at Mr. Jeckovich, turned and walked away from Mr. Jeckovich with his back towards him, and he knew for just that few seconds of eye contact that he was in no danger of losing his life.
Yeah.
But he had a drop on him. He could have shot him in a second. What do you think would have took place if that was the SS?
They would have shot me in the head.
They would have had no trouble.
Yeah.
So there's more good people than bad, we believe. And I hope that young Nazi soldier had a long and wonderful life. I hope he had a long and wonderful life. So during World War II, there were 16,400,000 young men and women who were in World War II. Many were rear echelon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Today,
support troops.
Support troops. We needed them, but they never seen battle. Mr. Jeckovich was 100% battle. What was your weapon?
My weapon was a pistol and a machine gun,
What type of machine gun?
30 caliber, water cooled.
Yeah, water cooled. That barrel got red hot.
Yeah,
If it wasn't water cooled, it wouldn't work.
yeah.
One of your fellow soldiers grabbed the barrel. What happened?
They burned their hands right to this bone.
Ah, yeah. In the coldest winter record at times, it was 30 below. How did you keep the water from freezing?
Antifreeze.
I see, I see. So with several people working that heavy-duty machine gun, you had 2 or 3 ammo bearers?
Yeah.
You
One
had
had the tripod, one had the receiver,
You
and
had-
then it had the ammo bearers bringing up the ammo.
Yeah, and you were at work in the machine gun. And so it was a pretty big operation. You shoot out a couple thousand rounds from one spot, then what do you
Yeah,
do?
yeah. Well, moved.
You move quickly.
You had zero. They were zeroed in right away.
I see. And then when Mr. Jeckovich got wounded several times, they sent him to Paris, and look how times are different. They said they bandaged him up really good, and they
I was
said,
3 months in there.
yeah, they said basically if your index finger could pull the trigger of your machine gun, even though you're bandaged up, and you could walk,
We would go back.
Fit.
I went back with bandages on my
Fit.
arm. Yeah,
fit,
yeah. Fit for duty.
fit for duty. So if your index trigger could work roll that machine gun, and you could walk, you're back in.
Yeah,
So getting back to it, there were 16,400,000 young men and women participating in World War II. And now the actual combat veterans, the front line, the real fighters, dog-eat-dog fighters, there's only 6,000 left. We're losing them at a rate of 150 a day.
boy.
Most of them are in the late 90s, early 100s. Yeah. We don't have one World War I vet. Soon we won't have one World War II vet. So if you have any questions to ask this true frontline fighter from World War II, text him. He loves to answer. He'll talk to you and tell you about his situation. His number is 407-366-0000. 407-366-0000. Text him any questions. He'd be glad to answer them, or he'd like to talk to you too. His mind is like a library. He's done many things. He's done many things. It is the greatest generation of all times, I assure you that. Minutes, please. So you remember this postcard you got?
Yeah, yeah.
He delivered to all the soldiers.
1 minute, 47 seconds.
Wow.
How do you get all those postcards faded up?
Copies online.
I
Yeah.
mean, how do you get it up so fast?
Yeah, how do you make 250,000?
Yeah,
I guess he's top brass, he could get it done.
yeah,
Top brass could get it done, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But when you had a run-in with him when you were in that bar, and he says, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Wow. How about the time, tell us when they told, Washington told him not to cross that Rhine. You're not prepared or you don't have the manpower.
Yeah, yeah.
What happened there?
Well, I come up and seen him back doing it. Some of it is over there was pissing in the water.
Yeah, yeah. They told Patton, don't cross the Rhine. You don't got the manpower.
Yeah.
You don't have the equipment. He crossed the Rhine, and he always kept like 2 or 3 photographers and news reporters with him. The first thing he did, because everyone told him he couldn't do it, he got to the side where it was the enemy there. He whipped it out and took a piss right in the water, and telling Eisenhower and all the guys, I did it. I did it. You know, I did it.
I was thinking, I got your ass because I got every movie, every paper in the country has got that picture on it.
Yeah, you can still find it of Patton pissing in the Rhine.
Yeah.
What a character, huh? Minutes, please.
20 seconds.
So you remember that quite well.
Yeah,
Yeah. Unfortunately, he wanted to go to the Pacific to fight
yeah.
after the war, but it didn't turn out. Tell us
No,
why.
they dropped the bomb, yeah.
But tell us how come.
8 seconds.
Yeah, we were sweating that out
Yeah,
because they had advanced troop over there already.
yeah.